Something very obvious that we need to talk about in Topdog Underdog is the fact that this character is named Lincoln and dressed as a Lincoln impersonator, including with whiteface, let alone that he has a brother named Booth. I want to talk about the kind of use of Lincoln in a very not straightforward way in this play, including the part where we name his future killer, spoilers, Booth. Naming him Booth is the spoiler, and the use of whiteface on stage. All these things bring up an enormous amount of symbolic resonance without coming straight out with any easy one-for-one symbolic reading. That is not how Susan Laurie Parks works. She is not interested in giving you a big obvious symbol that clearly means one primary thing. In fact, she exploits the gap between what the symbol's doing and what we would expect the symbol to be doing. She brings it up in a way that forces us to deal with the fact that there's a kind of gap opening up between the expected meaning and what's happening. What's happening and what is usually associated with that, and forces us to fill in that gap ourselves. Let me talk about these things in order of complexity. So let me start with the Booth thing. One of the jokes about Booth being named Booth is that, of course, John Wilkes Booth, the assassin, was an actor. So this play has theater on the brain, and oh my goodness, does it. The fact that Lincoln was killed by an actor, by a Shakespearean actor, is absolutely relevant, but it's not clear what it's doing. This is brought up, you can't not hear it, and then things don't get tied up in a neat bow for us. We're left to think about it and forced to produce the meaning ourselves. And there's actually one of the Broadway theaters in New York is the Booth Theater, named after John Wilkes' older, more talented, less criminal brother, Edwin Booth, the great Shakespearean actor of America at that moment. I'll admit I've been realized that I was spending part of President's Day weekend in the Booth Theater, and that was weird. We have an actor, we have a character whose name is both an assassin's name and a famous actor's name. That's weird. The white face that Lincoln wears as part of his Lincoln disguise is really very strange because, of course, it evokes the use of blackface. Blackface, a theatrical tool, which is anathema to most of us now, and rightly so. Those of us to whom it is not anathema should get with the program. Maybe something we might always feel uncomfortable with was, say, 16th and 17th century actors used it, and we might not feel that was quite appropriate even then. But blackface becomes really toxic during the 19th century in America when it becomes part of the minstrel show tradition, a theatrical popular tradition designed to stereotype and derogate and denigrate African Americans. In fact, many stereotypes about African Americans originate in the theater, in the minstrel show tradition. So by the second half of the 20th century, blackface should be toxic to everybody. Susan Laurie Parks shows us not a black actor, a white actor in blackface, but a black actor in whiteface. And that's weird. She is in some ways short-circuiting our expectations of reversal, because that is not the same. That is not the same because there's no 100+ year tradition of African American performers putting on whiteface to go out and play ridiculous over-the-top stereotypes of white people that then become part of the actual oppression of white people, because white people don't get oppressed. It didn't happen, right? It is not a function. So what is the whiteface doing? The whiteface is making you wondering what it's doing. It's there to be weird. It's there to be not fully explained. It's strange. And note how Lincoln applies it to different degrees at different moments. It's also a strange thing for a black character to be in whiteface at all. That's weird. Finally, His name is Lincoln. He's sometimes dressed as Lincoln. He's got this job as a Lincoln impersonator. But what he does as a Lincoln impersonator is not give speeches or talk about like equality and the end of slavery, but get shot pretending to watch a non-existent play, like that Lincoln is sitting, Lincoln, the character, is sitting watching a play that doesn't exist. Lincoln is obviously one of the most important figures in American culture. We have his image everywhere. He's particularly important for African American history because he's the president who leads the Union in the Civil War and abolishes slavery, better late than never, the leader of the anti-slavery movement, as distinct from the more radical abolitionist movement. Someone with for whom African American culture has a real connection, though not always an easy connection, because he's still he can be understood sometimes as Lincoln can be used as a symbol of a kind of patronizing approach to civil rights as well. Not to blame Abraham himself, but some people who've used his image. The fact that this black man is embodying Abraham Lincoln is extremely strange and is willfully a little inexplicable. It forces us to speculate. It forces us to imagine. Forcing us to speculate about what's going on is a lot of Parks' stagecraft.